getting your picks for tonight's Game 6 of the NBA Finals. So chase or fade, the Bucks cover their favorites at 4.5. Kenny, this has moved a little. It's hovering between 4.5 and 5, but it sits at 4.5 right now.
Yeah, I don't think that they cover. You know, we've talked about this really for a few days now, and the Phoenix Suns have played some really good games. Now, in the Western Conference Finals, I would have told you that they did not play pretty well until they managed to close it out in Game 6. They played some awful games. But the last two times out, Game 4 and Game 5, they've played pretty well. And even in Game 4, had the lead that whole game, dominated the Milwaukee Bucks until the very end of the game when they lost that lead. So really, we should be looking at two one-possession games over the last two games. I think that this is the same story. I think this is a very, very close game. Not much between these two teams. If you look at the shooting numbers, the turnovers, the rebounds last game, it was really, really even, which is to be expected at a 4-point game. But I do think that the Phoenix Suns cover this spread. I would not take it at +4. I loved it at +5. I still like it at +4.5. I don't really like it that much at +4. I do think that this is a pretty close game because, again, the Phoenix Suns here have the size down low to bother the Bucks. The Bucks, I haven't really seen too much consistency out of Drew Holiday to really trust him as the tertiary scorer. And I think ultimately this is a game that the Suns could win. I'm not so sure they do, but it should be close.
Julian, the Suns could win, but this is just a fun fact for you. Chris Paul teams are 1-12 in the last 13 playoff games, refereed by official Scott Foster, who will be the chief for the refereeing crew in Game 6 this evening. So, Jules, what do you think?
Not just 1-12 straight up, but also 1-12 against the spread in those games and 0-12 over the last 12. So we're talking years ago, the game that Chris Paul won and covered with Chris Paul, with Foster officiating. I don't know. My brain's in a pretzel this entire postseason. We keep coming on these segments and trying to pick these games, and like Game 4 went with the Suns to bounce back in Milwaukee. Shame on me. They led the whole game, almost got their miraculous Bucks cover. Even if the Bucks were going to win that game, the odds of them covering were ridiculous, and they pulled that out. Game 5, go right back to the Suns. It's fine. They'll bounce back at home, up 16 in the first quarter, blow it, come back, have a chance to win the game. Another game losing turnover by the Suns. It was Chris Paul in Game 4. It was Devin Booker in Game 5. I was ready to just dive in head first again and say, give me the Suns here. This is the spot where, Milwaukee got the road win. They're going to close it out at home, and I'll be contrarian and go Phoenix. And then it seems like everybody piled on the Suns, and now we have the Scott Foster news, which makes it so tough to back the Suns. I don't know if I can take Suns money line in this game, but with the points, like Kenny said, like these last two games have come right down to it. Phoenix could have won. Phoenix makes two more late game shots. They win this series in 5. If they split the bad bounces, Milwaukee's looking at an elimination game at home, but both of them went the Bucks' way. I think one of them has to go the Suns' way, or at least just keep it into, a one possession game down the stretch. So I will go right back to the Suns and take the points, but a lot of things pointing against it, I guess, in this spot.
Okay, Nick, go ahead.
All right. Well, these guys laid everything out pretty well, conveniently, so I don't have a ton to say. I mean, I will add the stat that I mentioned on the show yesterday. 11 times in NBA history has a team been up 3-2 with a chance to close the series at home in a Game 6. And 10 of those 11 times, the team has won straight up. So with that, coupled with the Scott Foster stat that you threw out, the numbers are certainly in favor of the Milwaukee Bucks. But as someone who lives in Milwaukee, has lived in Wisconsin my entire life, I know better than to trust the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm expecting a loss. If they win, great. But everything about the last 28 years of my life would suggest that the Bucks somehow blow this game, and we have to go to the most nerve-wracking Game 7 of all time. But man, it's really tough. Julian made a good point. With these last two games, like it's really come down to just one or two plays at the end that have gone Milwaukee's way, and it does feel like maybe that ball is due to bounce back in favor of Phoenix. Blowing that lead, the way that they were able to jump out in Game 5, nothing in me thought that Milwaukee would rally back and then, eventually really control most of the second half. They have to avoid another, big hole that you're playing out of for the entire game. It's really felt like for 4 of the 5 games so far, Milwaukee's just perpetually playing from behind. They're always like 7 to 10 points down And in these last two, they've been able to rally and kind of flip the script, but they just can't keep playing from behind and rely on these really unlikely kind of crazy memorable plays at the end of games. So I think we're going to know early on, the energy in that building, if that's going to carry Milwaukee, if they come out and Pat Connaughton has 2 threes in the first quarter and Milwaukee's up by 12, this could be one of those games where the crowd just kind of carries them. But if it's close at the half, if Phoenix is playing well, I think I would lean towards Phoenix on the spread. And I think we probably head back to Phoenix for a game 7.